Welcome to the National Chumps podcast. I'm your boy Bird.
I'm Rev! And I'm done.
Yeehaw. What's up, boys? Episode 3, National Chumps. Welcome back. Love to see you guys here. Today, what do we got on the lines?
We're going to talk some top 25 in the new week 17 poll.
Love that.
Talk about who's comers and who's goers.
Excited to rip some of these teams today.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it should be a pretty good time. Top 25 is definitely not what it's looked like in previous years with a lot of big teams out of it.
Yeah.
But let's get into it and start ripping some people apart.
I think the first team that everybody wants to rip all the time is Kansas. Where are you been? Where are you at? Where are you going? And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, you're going nowhere. You're getting close to being out of the shot to get a bid. Honestly, the only thing that they're banking on is their Ken Palm ranking right now, and that's the only thing that's going to help them get a seat in March Madness.
Well, and to be fair, with Kansas, they have that blue blood pedigree. They have the name. You know Kansas, and if they make a little bit of a run towards the end of the season, make a good showing in the Big 12 tournament and get some good wins, you know they're going to find their way into that tournament.
Okay, do you think they beat Michigan?
I mean, there's potential there because I also think Michigan is a little fraudulent at the moment. We were talking about them, a couple weeks ago when we were here last time, saying that they had some potential to be pretty good, but I mean they had to win on a buzzer beater this last week. So,
What about Michigan State?
you know how I feel about Michigan State.
They're the Izzo.
It's Tom Izzo's time, and he's got a really, really good team in Michigan State, and he hasn't had a team this good in a while. And if Tom Izzo gets hot, and that Michigan State team gets hot, you better watch out.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just talking about it before. With Kansas basketball, Bill Self put out a little tweet, little memo today. And here's what drives me crazy about today's college sports. It's a win-now mentality. It doesn't matter who's on the floor. It doesn't matter who's drawing up the plays. It doesn't matter who the administration is. If you don't win now, the fan base is going to jump you. And right now, Kansas is learning that because Bill Self had to put out a thing today that talked about how hard his team's competing and how hard his team's getting after it. Well, hey, guess what? You're one of the oldest teams in America who's been playing together for the longest period of time, and it looks lackadaisical.
It does.
And he put out a mantra today, said, hey, it's my fault. I got to coach him better. We got to play harder. We're doing what we can. But right now, it's not good enough. And when we get to March, if they're on that 6 and 7 line, you bet your ass I'm picking whoever they're playing against. Because they are. If they make it to the second weekend, they're probably going to win the whole thing.
Especially if they get matched up with an actual, a non-mid-major. I shouldn't say actual team. We understand that these college basketball teams are real, but if they get matched up with one of those 13 teams that are possibly coming out of the SEC, I could really see Kansas being done for in the first round, and it would be a very, very fun line to take because you know that the books are going to take Kansas, and they're going to put them as favorites, even though they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say. I still feel like there's definitely a shit ton of madness happening right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 2 buzzer beaters this week.
Ooh. Shout out Tennessee.
We get to the first day of March, baby, and we get 2 buzzer beaters. Oh, the music. Da 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 da.
Yeah, it just won't be the same without Gumbel on Selection Sunday this year.
No. He
He just brought that consistency for the last 25, 30 years, however long he got to do it. But man, it is going to be a different type of selection Sunday this year. But man, huge shout out to CBS because their bracketology and the way that they go in deep and talk about things with college basketball, way better than any other platform in my opinion.
I agree.
Would agree. Always comes out on the dime too. First, CBS is always the first to put it out.
Yeah, I have their bracketology up right now. Kansas is currently a 6 seed. Guess who they're playing?
Bleh.
Georgia.
Oklahoma. You want to talk about a
an
McVomit
SEC
game?
dog fighting for their lives at the bottom of the barrel.
They went undefeated in the non-con, and they just get beat to shit during conference play.
How
And
do you
here we
not?
are.
Look at the teams that you got in there. You got Auburn, you got Alabama, you got Tennessee.
Great.
Right? How do you compete with those teams when you don't have the recruiting and the skill level?
So why do you deserve to be in the tournament?
Why does Kansas deserve to be in the tournament if they got
don't.
the same thing?
They don't.
Exactly.
But I mean, Kansas Oklahoma is at least going to be a fun matchup to watch.
Would be.
Like you can't say that it's not going to be. You know, it's two programs that used to be Big 12 teams. One of them still is in the Big 12, I suppose. And you know, they know each other well. They know the environment. They know everything about it. Two teams that have gone to the tournament a ton of times, and you know we can dog on Kansas all we want, but when you put coaches in these championship scenarios who have been there and have experienced that, that makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
Come this time of year.
It does.
It
Then we
definitely
talk
does.
about Tom Izzo.
Well, we can wait to talk about Tom Izzo. Like right now, I think Bill Self is obviously playing cover my ass mode with what he sent out. And if you're just talking about your team, like they're working hard and they're competing and it's not good enough. If you're talking about your team being competitive, you're in a pretty shitty situation as a head coach, and I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just drives me crazy. I mean, not to jump ship, but in the baseball world, the Texas A&M baseball players came out today after they lost one of their better players, and they've lost 3 straight, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna figure it out, but we got to right the ship." And it's like, yeah, that's understandable. I get that. You lose one of your better hitters, you got to replace them, figure all that out. But when you're one of the longest tenured teams and one of the longest tenured coaches in college basketball, and half the competition that was in your conference leaves, and it's literally your conference to take and just beat down like Gonzaga does with the West Coast.
Houston is in the Big 12.
Houston is also very good.
Houston has always been a good team.
Yeah.
You know, like we can't just say that the Big 12 is total shit. It's not like Big 12 football here.
No.
Like Big 12
Arizona's
football.
good too.
Yeah, Arizona's a quality Big 12 program, and Colorado has good players. They can't figure it out,
No,
but they have
can't.
good players. And you know, Iowa State's also in that conference too. It's not that it's a bad conference, but like you said, it should be one that Kansas is running away with, or at least being in a two-headed monster race with Houston.
Yeah.
Like Iowa State should not be in this conversation. But it's always going to be fun to watch Iowa State be a 3-seed or a 2-seed and lose before the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a team right now that's 5th in the Big 12, and they're 10-8 in Big 12 play.
6th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, I can't count.
Sorry. I just want to point out that BYU's up ahead of them right now. And in the top 25.
Storm and Mormons are back, baby.
Yes, sir.
How about that shit with the Arizona student section? Did you hear what they said?
I did not.
So they're playing BYU, and they're at Arizona, obviously.
Okay.
And as BYU is coming off the court, the whole student section is chanting, "F the Mormons."
Really?
At the top of their lungs.
Can't have it.
Can't have it.
And, you know, like, I understand college kids. You head out to, you know, a couple bars before the game.
Yeah.
You have a couple beers at the game. You're feeling pretty loose. But, man, that was a pretty horrible look on Arizona.
Yeah, you know, when you're chirping, there's a line that you can't cross, and that's one of them.
Welcome to the McHale Center, though.
Right. Yeah. Like, and, you know, former Pac-12 guy here, you obviously know what it's like to play or be around the Arizona student section. I mean, look at the waste management, like, Waste Management Open in Phoenix. Like, Arizona's just a place for people to get without
Rowdy.
a better way
rowdy.
to get rowdy. You found a better way. I was
Yeah.
going to say fucking crazy, but they get rowdy over
Yes,
there.
they do.
I was going to say, my first year at Oregon, we went down to Tucson and played a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series against Arizona. And Friday night, David Peterson's going, and he walked a guy on 4 pitches, which is so rare. That like his strikeout to walk ratio was like 20-1. It was absurd. And he pointed back towards somebody behind home plate. And I was like, what's going on? Dude was shooting a laser pointer at his eyes while he's pitching.
Oh my god!
Like these people will do anything to help their team win. Not saying that they're bad fans, but they will go over
If
the
you're
top.
shooting F the Mormons, I would consider you bad fans.
Bad fans.
You're shining a laser pointer in a pitcher's eye, you're bad fans.
Guess you got to do what you got to do to try to help your team because they're also bad.
Yeah, Tucson and Tempe are elite college towns. Like, I really enjoyed going to both of them because
Oh, I believe that.
those chirps were pretty good. The only other place I got chirped outside of that was when we went to Utah and Salt Lake City, and that guy gave me hell.
Mormons are giving it right back to you.
I don't think that guy was Mormon. If he was, he probably needs to reconsider.
But yeah, anyways, back to our topic of subjects. Kansas, oof, just really struggling. Along with, Texas. Texas had a tough week.
Yeah, they did.
Being a bubble team, everything you can do to help you can also hurt you, right? Like, they did not have a good Saturday.
Losing to Georgia.
Losing to Georgia is just killer right now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm starting to see Texas's bubble pop a little bit.
Yeah.
And, I like the Longhorns, but, man, they have been shooting themselves in the foot. And they've played some really good basketball over the last month and a half, but
Really?
this last week just has not been good for the
really
Longhorns.
need to do some damage in the SEC tournament to make anything happen for them tournament-wise.
Right. And I think these conference tournaments are exactly what these bubble teams are hoping for.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta win 2 or 3 games in this conference tournament to put yourself back into that conversation.
Absolutely. Not to be the SEC hater that I am here.
Wearing a Tennessee jersey, by the way.
Hey,
With an Oregon hat, nonetheless.
flaunt it if you got it. Right now, we're talking about the teams on the bubble, right? Oklahoma, Texas,
Georgia.
Arkansas, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vandy, who's pretty much a log at this point with their quad 1 wins, all 500 or below in the SEC. Okay, Oklahoma is 4-12 in the SEC conference. Texas is 5-11. Arkansas 6-10. They've gotten better this month.
Coach Cal needs more time.
Yeah,
He just needs a little bit more time.
He'll get there.
Some better recruiting next year, too. Comes with better coaching.
But
Yeah,
why
yeah.
in the hell are we saying that these teams deserve to be in the NCAA tournament? But if you want to win a national championship, you should be competitive in your conference.
100%.
Clearly,
The best
not
teams eat each other up.
They do.
Oh, is that why Auburn's 15-1 in the conference? They're so good they got eaten up.
Well, no, because Auburn is that. We're not arguing if Auburn should be in the tournament or not.
Never.
We're arguing about these bottom teams who have to play Auburn twice, compared to Oregon, who's their best team that they have to play twice.
Who? Name them.
Michigan State. Is that who the best team Oregon has to play twice in the Big Ten?
I wouldn't even
I don't
consider
think
them
that
a great team.
I think the only teams they've played twice this year are the teams on the West Coast.
That would make more sense.
I think they've played Washington, UCLA, and USC twice.
Conference realignment-
UCLA, really scary.
UCLA beat
realignment
Michigan
has just
State, but
fucked me
Huh?
over.
UCLA beat Michigan State, though.
Okay. Still, where are they at in the tournament?
Was it one of Dunham's plays playing UCLA over Michigan State? Did Michigan State have to go all the way to UCLA and lose that game?
Yeah, they sure did. How about it?
Happens to the best of them.
Okay. Oregon's still ass.
They're going to be a 5 seed. They have
I'm betting on the 12.
they have the second most quad.
Hammer that 12 seed.
They have the second most quad 1 wins in America. Behind
Doesn't matter. They're going to find a way to fold.
Who are they behind?
They're going to find a way
Who
to
are they
fold.
behind? Who are they behind?
They're not behind anybody. Still going to find a way to fold to make Nice,
Dude,
VCU.
dude. Since 2010, who has won the most games in college basketball in the
we
month
talked
of March?
about this. Okay. Duke.
No.
How many national championships has Oregon won?
Why do you got to
during
do this? Why do you got to do this?
I mean, like, well,
Why do you got to do this?
Because you're doing the
Ref,
same thing on the Converse.
Can you see what I'm holding up here?
That That's a 0 or an O for Oregon?
0 for Oregon.
Oh, because they don't have any national championships. Is that
don't.
right?
What?
So,
Are you
sure,
t-
they might
they
have
have
won
one in college basketball.
What year?
Yeah, before 2010?
No, like 1952.
Yeah, so this whole wins in the month of March in 2010, how relevant is that stat?
I will say, when you do look at Dana Altman's resume, you're like, man, that guy's been to so many Final Fours. He's been to one.
Brutal.
And we lost to the eventual national champion. Now, here's the thing. Since 2010, if you go back in time, okay, this is for all you bracket people out there. If you're going to pick against Oregon, you better pick that team who beats them to win the national title. Because it's happened 8 or 9 times since 2008.
Wow.
That's actually quite the stat.
That is quite the
It's
stat.
pretty impressive. They
Let's hope
lost,
McNeese gets home.
they lost to Florida when Florida was on their run with Joakim Noah.
Which they could do again.
Yeah.
Absolutely, they could. And there's a high probability that they do if they end up in the same bracket. Okay, I'm not saying Oregon's going to win the national title, but to get to the second weekend, Dana Altman's done that quite a few times.
Sure,
Whether he's
yeah,
a 13, a 11, a 10, a 5, he gets to that Sweet 16 in the Elite 8. It just happens, right? They lost to Oklahoma and Buddy Hield. They lost to North Carolina when Baycott was a freshman. They lost to Wisconsin with Frank Kaminsky. They lost to Louisville with
Frank the
Pitino.
Tank.
So, like, what I'm telling you is if you're going to bet against Oregon and you're going to pick against them, have that team at least get to the Final Four because those odds are pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you there. But Oregon, where are they at in the top 25?
They are not in the
They're
top
not.
25.
So you have 9 quad wins,
Yep.
and you're still not in the top 25. So what does that tell you about how the media or whoever, it's the AP top 25, right?
Yes.
So this is all Associated Press stuff.
Yeah.
They must see something in Oregon that they're not a huge fan of either.
Okay.
Because they can't finish against those weaker teams.
Hold up. Timeout.
Okay.
Timeout. I'm calling timeout. Timeout. Before, I'm taking 30 seconds here. Okay.
Flag on the play.
Yeah, just a 30. Dana Altman does this thing, and he
Okay.
does it every year. If Oregon is good in the non-conference, which they are, they beat Alabama, they beat Texas A&M, they won the Vegas tournament. Okay, they've beaten some really good teams.
They have. I'll give them that.
In the preseason, if they have a really, really good non-conference, during conference season, he will work some rotations and see what works and filter some different guys. And they'll lose some road games where you're like, man, this team sucks. And he'll make everybody jump ship. If you look at Oregon basketball Twitter, they are like, hey, this guy needs to go. And then when we get to March, he's like, all right, here's the 5 guys that can score and rebound are back on the floor together and they play together. And now they're going to beat teams and they're going to make a run in the Big Ten tournament. And I wouldn't be shocked if they end up getting to that semifinal, final championship game in the Big Ten. They do it every freaking year. The only difference is this year in the Big Ten is if they end up as that 8 or 9 seed, and they win that first game, guess who they draw in their quarterfinal match?
Who?
Michigan State.
Ooh.
So-
It is March. Tom Izzo.
That's a tough matchup.
Tom Izzo's March.
And this is going to be way different than the Pac-12 tournament where you don't get Arizona, whoever comes out of the LAs, whether it's UCLA or USC, you don't get those teams until the semis. You get them straight off the bat.
And, you know, like, college kids will adjust just as they should, but you also have to go from Oregon to Indianapolis to go play in this tournament.
Yeah, well, football
Yeah.
people said the same thing, so
Yeah, and it turned out that Ohio State was still better than Oregon.
still Big Ten champions.
Correct, but
Oregon's been Big Ten champions twice already this month.
I think Oregon would have taken a national championship over any of those Big Ten titles that they've already
Well,
received.
I don't disagree with you, but still Big Ten champions. It means something.
Yeah, it does mean something until you lose in the CFB, and it doesn't mean a whole lot of anything. And it's going to be the same thing if they win the Big Ten tournament and they get to the Sweet 16 and then
second,
lose
third
to
round.
another team. And it's like, well, what was
Hey,
it?
it's still Big Ten champs, though, bud.
Right.
It's all about how you define success. If we're defining success by straight championships, then no one's successful outside of Alabama football, Duke basketball, like
The
winning.
Gophers from 1938 to
Yeah.
1943.
It's all
Don't get
about
me started
defining
on
success.
Ivy Leagues. Yeah, still got the most.
Oh, we're going back to that.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
Sorry.
might
But
have another
let it
chance
go.
this year.
Can't let it go.
But I do think that Oregon has a good team.
Tournament.
Like, there's no doubt about it. They have really good big men. They shoot the ball well. Like, they're a good basketball team, no doubt. I really don't know how many like outside of those top 4 seeds are really going to be in contention for anything anyway. Like, you just look at some of these top heavy teams, like Auburn is super good, Duke is good.
Cooper Flag.
Yes, Cooper Flag.
Nasty.
Best player in the country right now. It's hard to disagree with that.
Yeah, scoring 20 plus points a game.
They're going to win
around,
the ACC, right?
Around 7-8 assists a game, 10 rebounds a game.
Duke going to win the ACC, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's no way.
There's no shot they don't. Who's
What
beating
about,
them?
what about Clemson?
No.
Clemson
Clemson
might-
Clemson train.
Hey,
Clemson
Cooper
might-
Flag has grown up in the last 2 months, okay? They're not losing to Clemson again.
Yeah, well, you just never know. It's March, and Clemson has more to play for than Duke. I think some of these teams that are like guaranteed into the tournament already with these at-large bids, they might take a little bit of a break in these conference tournaments.
No shot.
They don't care about winning.
No
that
shot,
much.
Duke. No shot that Duke takes a break.
Don't sleep on Pat Kelsey
I'll go.
and the Louisville Cardinals.
Yes, that
The
is
Louisville
such
Cardinals are hot.
that is such an interesting point you bring up, man. Louisville, when they lost Rick Pitino and got put in that blackballed by the entire NCAA,
Yeah.
all of that, and now you look at Louisville as a top 25 team in the country.
And 16-2 in their conference.
They've won 7 straight.
What a turnaround!
Yeah.
In Louisville, Kentucky. And
Is it going to be like last year with NC State where they won 5 games in 5 days in the ACC tournament and they make it happen?
who was the big guy from NC State last year? It was a ton of fun to watch.
He plays.
He was a power forward. He was a big
Yeah.
dude.
They were trying to get him to go to the NFL because it was last year.
Right,
I know
yes.
exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we were following NC State as March Madness went
Yeah.
on. You know, Coach Cruz and I do something that's pretty fun in the month of March. We make some brackets, we draft some players. And
Yeah.
we have a whole team of guys that we cheer for, and we have certain individuals that we cheer for, and it's been a ton of fun in years past.
I remember. I think it was first or second episode. We were talking about who was just being an absolute dog around March Madness. Max Abmas
Yes,
went from Oral
That's the guy.
Roberts to I believe it was Kentucky.
Yep.
Yeah,
Popped
Max
out.
Abmas scoring 30 plus points a game, just tearing teams a new one in March Madness the last 2 years.
You guys were talking about DJ Burns. was
DJ
his
Burns.
name.
DJ Burns, that was the
his
guy.
name. Yeah, he was fun to watch.
He was.
He was fun to watch. I mean, it's hard when you're playing basketball. If you're like one of the freshman guys who's 6'10" and 140 pounds, going up against somebody who's 6'8", 320 is a little different.
And he could move really well too.
Yeah, he was an
He
athlete.
ran the floor. Okay, didn't take shit on defense. And
Shot
he could
free throws well.
Shot free throws really well.
And like that's another thing we have to start considering here too as we get later into March. Like it's going to be the little things that are going to come down to it.
Yeah.
Like don't be surprised if Wisconsin makes a big run in this March Madness tournament because they are one of the best free throw shooting teams in the country.
Yeah.
100%.
And Wisconsin's also a championship pedigree.
Yeah.
They know how to win basketball games in March too. And if they
Yeah.
if they get good matchups, favorable matchups where they don't have to try to keep up with a team like Alabama,
Yeah.
they'll be just fine. They'll be just fine.
Yeah. All right, let's move into tournament bids. How about that? I know we were talking
Okay.
a little bit,
Okay.
looking at like the SEC gets 13 bids, right? We spent a little bit of time talking about the bottom feeders in the SEC, Arkansas, Georgia, Texas. Why do they deserve anything in this tournament?
They don't.
They don't.
They don't.
Okay, then let's talk about Ken Pom. Right? We got our Ken Pom lover over here. Okay.
I'm not the only one that
how
loves the Ken Pom. It's
I mean, we all appreciate Ken Pom, right?
do love
But
Ken Pom.
how does Ken Pom go into these lower tier SEC teams, thinking that they're going to be able to make some moves in March Madness?
Yeah, how does Ken Pom look at Oklahoma?
So if we take a look at Oklahoma in the Ken Pom, as you can tell, I'm doing quite a bit of scrolling. It's not a good look for Oklahoma, or I'm also a terrible reader. Oklahoma's at 45. 45. And their biggest thing is their defensive rating is at 75, and their adjustment is at 116. Their luck, and you're going to need some luck in March, is at 192. But
again, it's that strength of schedule. And
Yeah.
strength of schedule is top 20 in the country, and it's not like it's going to get any worse.
The only reason it's top 20 in the country is because you got Florida, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Mississippi State making a little bit of, window.
Yeah,
into
Mississippi
that.
State's higher than Oklahoma in the KenPom, as they should be.
Yeah.
Like, and if you're
Ole
looking at
Miss,
it,
and even Vandy. Vandy's making moves. They just beat Missouri. Blech. On Missouri. We'll talk about them a little later.
but there's 3 conferences right now. If you look at the strength of schedule rating, and in the top 25, there's only 3 conferences, and they would be the SEC,
ACC.
no,
The Big 12.
the Big
Big
12, the Big 12, and the Big 10.
Yep.
So those teams are always going to get, like, even their bottom feeders are going to get the benefit of the doubt of just playing in an extremely tough conference.
Which is so dumb.
I agree. Like, even Creighton is at a strength of schedule of, it looks like 39, but they also challenge themselves in those early non-conference tournaments and play some good non-conference opponents.
But here's the thing that pisses me off about strength schedule. Even if you lose, strength of schedule doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Right? Strength of schedule only works if you're winning those games. Strength of record might be more important, but at the end of the day, here's my issue with this whole thing. And what's going to come in the near future, especially if the Big Ten and the SEC take over all of college sports, which it sounds like is headed that direction.
Yeah.
The little guys and the mid-majors still matter, okay? Like I talked about on the last episode, the tournament is an opportunity to make money for some of these schools and boost their programs.
Yeah,
Like-
absolutely.
Like, how can you expect to grow the game and grow these conferences? And this is why we have crazy, insane periods of realignment, is because being in these bigger conferences matter. But in order to get into these conferences, you have to play well.
I would love to see Duke go to the SEC for basketball.
No, I would just love the ACC to be better. Like,
They're not gonna get better.
but let's ditch.
But they should be. They have Louisville. They have North Carolina.
They've
have
got
Duke.
three.
They have Clemson.
They have the best player
they have
in
good
America.
teams.
They have 3 ranked teams this year.
Yeah, because Florida State's not good. You need these
Weird.
national brands to be good, right?
Yeah.
Because the national brands are going to carry the conference. If your national brands are bad, then the rest of the conference is seen as bad, even if they're not.
And Florida State is bad.
Florida State's not
Florida
good.
State's
Bad
in-
all around, sports wise.
Right. They're well. I haven't followed too much about them in baseball. They might be okay,
They'll be okay.
but Florida State, what happened there? Florida State used to be the
Georgia
school.
Tech came up, beat their asses at the start of college football, and then the whole school was like, "We're fine."
Well, I think not getting into the playoff really hurt them, and then when everybody opted out and they got smoked by Georgia, like that kills a lot of pedigree and it loses a lot of steam, right? Like all sorts of schools go through this when you have a period where you lose for more than 1 or 2 years. You lose steam, okay, which hurts enrollment numbers, and then your fan base is down, and then your student section's not as strong. And that's really what you need in these college sports is you need these enrollment numbers to be high. You need to play quality opponents. You need to get into these tournaments and have your brand represented at a national stage. And Miami's about to go through this too, since their coach was just like, "Yeah, I hate NIL. I'm just going to be done a week before the season starts."
Yeah.
Like, that drives me crazy. In Florida, on the up and come, a lot of those in-state kids probably going to end up in Gainesville. South Florida's on the rise.
Yeah.
UCF is now a
UCF.
Big 12 school.
It's definitely going to pull some of those kids away who.
Space Knots.
Right. I agree, but it's UCF is going to pull kids away that probably aren't going to contribute for Florida or Florida State until they're juniors or seniors anyway.
Well, I mean, FIU's now got to deal with Pitbull.
Oh, shut
Like,
up.
That matters.
Shut up.
You just like
Pitbull-
their uniforms.
I do.
Pitbull is still a thing. He's a guy.
Yeah.
Mr. Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide.
I mean, that guy has his own Sirius
Set the room on
XM
fire.
station. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Pitbull Radio.
Pitbull Radio.
How many people listen to fucking Pitbull?
Millions.
Probably a lot.
I know it's crazy, but it's
He's
not
like
good.
He's like Bad Bunny. He's influential outside the U.S. too.
Yeah.
it's not just influential inside the U.S.
All right.
Yeah, I'm just thinking
All
about.
right.
I'm just thinking about the USA only. Sorry. Other countries, I know you're not listening.
Sorry, true
Except
patriot.
maybe my friends in Canada. Shout out to Lakehead State University, just dominating.
Shout out to
Canada college hockey.
Shout out to
Yeah, shout out Canada.
shout out to everybody tuning in from Minnesota too.
Shout out.
And Oregon, okay, Pacific Northwesterners. All right, we appreciate the support you guys give.
So we're gonna start losing those viewers soon, just because the sun's coming out up there. They're going outside. Listen to the podcast while you walk.
I mean, we talked about it a minute ago. Let's chirp Missouri a little bit.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Right? You're doing all this gaining, the AP top 25, and then you come around and just take a fat Duke on your leg. You just, right? You lose the
It was like, what now?
Mississippi
It was like,
State.
what?
You lose the Mississippi State
And Arkansas.
and Arkansas and
And Vandy.
Vanderbilt. Okay?
Okay, but stop the Vanderbilt slander. Vanderbilt's had a great college basketball year.
I'm not-
Yeah,
we are not
500 in the
slandering
SEC. We
Vandy.
win at home and lose on the road.
It's like that in every conference. You've mentioned that when you talked about your gambling lines.
And we've made a
Anyways,
lot of money.
Coach Cruz, continue.
Just Missouri cannot figure it out in March Madness right now. I would say if they get put up against one of those mid-major teams we were talking about, I'd be more inclined to go with the mid-major team just because I don't know if their offense can handle it. You have a team, like a St. John's, a mid-major team that plays defense like St. John's. We're talking VCU. We're talking High Point, right? Those teams could 100% lock you down because they want it more, it seems like.
They could. I don't disagree with you, but at the end of the day, you have to look at Missouri's success as well, going from a team that won 0 SEC games last year
Yeah.
to a team that's now in this conversation. Like, hell of a turnaround, but obviously still some growing up to do. But this happens a lot to these SEC schools that just get put into the top 25 because it's like, oh, your strength of schedule is there, your quad wins might be there. You won 2 games this week. Let's put you in the top 25. Let's keep helping out the SEC.
Yeah.
Just like exactly what happened to Mississippi State.
I mean, we'll find out.
Honestly.
We'll find out on Wednesday. Missouri
Ole
gets to go
Miss.
to Norman, Oklahoma, and so if Missouri can go to Oklahoma and pull out a win, and it's a big if.
Well, and it's a huge game for Oklahoma too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like,
Keep
that's a
rolling
quad.
up the ranks.
That's a quad 1 win.
that's a quad 1 win, and Oklahoma's on the bubble. Right now they're playing Kansas. If they beat Missouri, you're going to start looking at them as like a 10-19.
in the SEC.
Yeah. But they win undefeated in the non-conference, and that matters. That means
Don't
something.
know why. Don't know why.
That means something to somebody.
The wins mean
12.
The wins mean a lot. The losses don't mean much. Right?
Clearly.
Like that's the crazy thing about this strength of schedule shit.
Yeah.
And it drives people nuts. But let's be real, these SEC teams are a little bit better.
They are.
Like you can't say that
fine.
they're not. But is it frustrating to see some
Missouri versus Duke.
Missouri versus Duke? Duke by a million.
Duke by
Mis-
45.
Missouri versus Houston.
Houston by a million.
Missouri versus Michigan State.
That'll be a good ball game. Probably
Michigan State.
score under 50.
Michigan State versus Louisville.
Michigan State versus Louisville, or Mizzou versus Louisville.
Mizzou versus Louisville.
Track meet. Hello. But
Louisville.
I'll tell you what. Missouri has won the track meets. They beat Alabama, and they scored 110 points. And then they beat South Carolina 101 to like 84.
Well, anybody can beat South Carolina this year.
But if you're in the track meet and you win the track meet, you're the fastest person at the track meet.
Wow. That's some good analysis, Booger.
It's a damn good thing it's ain't a track meet, brother.
Now here's a guy.
Gosh, you remember when Booger McFarland used to travel on that sideline cam
Yeah,
throughout
so funny.
Monday Night Football games? Gosh.
If you get 10 yards, that's a first down.
Thanks, Boog. Back to
Thanks,
Boog. Do you guys want to take a quick break?
Yeah.
Quick break? All right, we're going to take a quick little break. We're going to get back to you guys here in just a second.
This is a whole.
And we're back
Yes, sir.
from Dunham's Basement Productions. We're going to get into a little bit of the berth watch here, looking at some of those teams that might steal a bid in the tournament, some of those teams that might kick another team out, and those bubble teams that we all are interested to see get into the tournament. So we're going to turn it over to Dunham here. He's got T3 Bracketology pulled up. Good follow. Give him a follow on Twitter or X, whatever you would like to call it. And Dunham, let's go to you.
Yeah, so currently at the moment, T3 Bracketology has these teams in as locks, as in they're locked in the NCAA tournament. Duke, Clemson, and Louisville out of the ACC.
Can't really disagree there.
No. Out of the Big Ten, Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin, Maryland, Michigan, UCLA, Illinois, and Oregon. Out of the Big East, Marquette, St. John's, Creighton, and UConn. Blech. In the Big 12, Iowa State, Houston, Texas Tech, Arizona, Kansas, bleh, and Utah. Or in BYU, not Utah. Sorry. Out of the mid-majors in the A10, current locks, St. Mary's and Gonzaga, of course. Out of the SEC, the most overrated conference in America, Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Florida, Texas A&M, Missouri.
Yeah, overrated. Got the
And
most locks
Vandy.
out there.
Well, it's easy to get the most locks when you put 35 teams in the top 25. Do that math.
Sounds overrated to me.
And then one of the other locks out of the American Conference is the Memphis Tigers.
Penny Hardaway still coaching that squad?
He is.
Penny Hardaway.
They're a good little basketball team.
They
this
are a
year,
good
too.
little basketball
Good little
team.
basketball team.
I always liked Memphis. They used to have Coach Cal, and then they kind of took a little bit of a hiatus, but Penny's been doing a pretty good job over there in Memphis. I like the little Tiger team he's got over there.
Yeah, I mean, I loved watching Derrick Rose as a kid. Almost locks. Out of the Mountain West, there's 3 teams that are almost locks. New Mexico, I believe, has to be a lock at this point. Utah
they're good.
State, and then San Diego State, who actually beat New Mexico last week. And then currently on the bubble, as it stands, teams that are currently bubble in: Nebraska, Indiana, which would be their 3rd tournament berth in 3 of the last 4 years, I believe.
Okay.
Which is crazy that people want to get rid of coaching staff there if you've been in the tournament the last 3 of the 4 years. But I get it. Bobby Knight's an expectation that you win national titles there, but
There's
whatever.
literally a whole basketball movie named after this program. The Hoosiers, man.
I get
Like,
it, but
I get it too, but Mike Woodson's got some high expectations to live up to, like you said, and Indiana just hasn't done that under him. They've gone, but just going to the tournament doesn't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
I guess. And then currently bubble in is Ohio State. I think that they find their way bubble out at some point. They've been pitiful
I
this
agree.
month.
I agree.
Boise State's also currently bubble in. Questionable at best.
Questionable.
Out of the A10, VCU is currently bubble in, so even if they don't win the A10, they're currently bubble in. Arkansas is bubble in at the moment. I love Coach Cal, but goodness gracious, what are we doing?
Still better than Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Not 3 weeks ago.
Ugh. And then one of the other teams that I have talked about numerous times, the Tritons of UC San Diego are also currently bubble in. So if they don't win the Big West, there's a chance that they are also bubble in. However, as we move into the teams that will remove those current bubble in teams, bubble out at the moment. So you're talking first 4 out, then the next 4 out. We might as well make the next 16 out because they're just going to keep producing. Be like, hey, yeah, that team was actually the next 4 out. It's like, yeah, you were the 8th team left out. No one cares. Okay, enjoy the NIT or the CBI. See you later. Okay, bubble out of the ACC, Wake Forest and North Carolina.
Chumps.
Yeah, we threw North Carolina in the chump bucket
They
last
seem
week.
to be living up to that expectation.
Yeah,
They
they
do.
sure do. However, watch them going around in the ACC tournament. Who knows? Out of the Big East, Xavier's currently bubble out. I don't think the Big East is that good this year, and the bubbles, in terms of the Big East, should be so irrelevant. If you're not in the top 4 of the Big East, then you're not on a bubble. You're just not good. In the Big Ten, Cincinnati's bubble out. Cincinnati's one of those teams that has upset a ton of people that have come into their building, but when they have to go play on the road, it's an absolute dumpster fire. And anytime you look to gamble on them when they're on the road, they are never in the plus minus 100 range. It is always plus minus 200 to 400. It is gross.
Well, and they had a pretty decent start to their season. You know, I think they were ranked as high as 12 or 13 at one point. But once they started getting into that Big 12 conference play, it just, like you said, have not been a good road team. And Cincinnati Bearcats are just, they've been blue balling people for years, thinking that they're a really good football team, a really good basketball team, and they just it never comes to fruition.
No.
They do have a little bit of magic, though. I mean, look what happened when Luke Fickell went to Wisconsin for football.
Bro, tune yourself down over there.
Yeah, sorry. Currently bubble out in the SEC. We've talked about Oklahoma and Texas both. Again, if you're in the bottom four of the SEC, you're not on the bubble. You're just bad. Okay, get out.
Would agree.
I think we should talk about just some of these bubble in, bubble out teams right now.
Yeah.
And then we can look at some of these other teams that T3's got on this far right of his birth watch.
Yeah.
Do you think any of these teams have a shot to make enough noise in their conference tournament? Or even win their conference tournament to steal a bid?
I'd say VCU for sure.
Yeah, VCU could definitely win the A10. It's been
100%.
They're currently second in the Big Ten right now. Not the Big Ten, the A10. Been a long week, folks. But they definitely have a chance, even if they don't win the A10. I think A10 this year is a two-bid league. So
Really? So if we're looking at the A10, it would be VCU, Dayton, George Mason.
yeah, but George Mason's.
George Mason
Probably
and Dayton
out.
not making it.
I
No
think
shot.
I think Dayton and George Mason have the potential to win the A10. I think that they do. George Mason can shoot the lights out. VCU's plays really good down the stretch. They're 15-0 at home. So, again, when we get to these neutral sites for these conference tournaments, guess what? Students aren't there no more. No more home court advantage.
You know, I could see those teams maybe beating Gonzaga because miracles happen in March and it's never going to the side for Gonzaga. But St. Mary's is a solid team. There's no way that you know Dayton is not going to squeak by St. Mary's.
Defense travels, right? And St. Mary's, what do?
Defense.
They play defense.
They play solid defense, but again, you look at any of these teams. I like VCU a lot, you know, and we talked about them even on our first episode about how they're a pretty good team up at Virginia Commonwealth. But again, it's the A10. Regardless, even if they get to the tournament, I don't know how much noise they really make there.
They're that exact program, right? That we're talking about. Like, you're gonna make a name for yourself when you make a run in the tournament, and that's how you advance yourself in this conference realignment. Don't eat the mic.
Hungry.
I hear you. I get it.
I just watched you dummy a Freddy's jalapeno cheddar cheeseburger.
It was so good.
It did look pretty good.
But I think when we talk about bid stealers, we're talking about teams that are at the bottom of the conference who make a run. Like last year's NC State was considered a bid stealer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. If the Colorado State Rams make a run here in the Mountain West tournament and they win the Mountain West, they
No
are
shot.
a bid stealer. It's March. There's always a shot, right? If
Don't get me started on CU.
If TCU makes a run and they win the
CU's a bit stealer.
Oh yeah, I'm sure when they draw Arizona in the second round.
Any team that makes their conference tournament is low-key considered a bid stealer.
With how much money these conference tournaments make, guess what? Everybody makes the conference tournament. That's how it works.
Yeah.
I don't think the Big Ten is working that way this year. I think that the Big Ten is doing only the top 12 in the standings, I believe.
Good for the Big Ten.
Well, I mean, the Big Ten is now like the Big 55. There's so many, like, conference realignment is absolutely messed with my brain, you know?
Yeah.
Back in my day when I could play NCAA March Madness 2004, you know, it was pretty straightforward which teams were in the Big Ten. There was 10 of them. Big 12, there was about 12 of them. But there's some teams that are going to be in that Big Ten that either have to play in and play like 7 extra games, it seems like, to even have a chance to be a bid stealer.
The Big Ten is taking 15.
Which is not everybody.
Is there 16 teams in the Big Ten?
I think there's 17.
Okay, so they are going to leave out Rutgers and Washington.
I don't think Rutgers is going to get left out. Rutgers is starting to look a little bit better, but not much better.
A little too late.
It's a lot too late. It's a lot too late.
They are the first team with 2 projected top 5 overall picks to miss the NCAA tournament. That's how good they are.
Yeah, and those kids committing to Rutgers, I struggle to see the reason why.
Money talks.
Money does talk, but at the same time,
New era. In LI.
yeah, but you're making money at Rutgers? NLI, like they must have just invested all of their money into these 2 kids.
Into basketball.
Yeah, but
Greg Schiano in football's got to turn around. Maybe they're making money in that direction. Who knows?
Yeah.
So,
I know, Dunham, one of the teams that you have been talking about is on almost flat bubble right here, UCI.
yeah. I mean, personally, I think the 2 top teams out of the Big West should make the NCAA tournament no matter who wins the Big West.
Yeah.
Both UCI and UC San Diego are really fun basketball teams to watch. They've played each other twice this year. Obviously, the home team has won. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on a neutral floor to see who ends up winning. I mean, UCI's got their center who's 7'2", and he weighs 280 pounds. He's a beast in the paint, but the one thing that San Diego does well is they shoot from the outside, and they attack the paint, so he generally racks up 3 fouls pretty quick.
Yeah.
And gets himself into some trouble. But I think both of those teams could give Kansas a run for their money, could give potentially Texas Tech a run for their money. Although I think Texas Tech would probably win the game, but it would be one of those games where you're watching and it comes down to a buzzer beater, and you got to go from the octo box to the singular box just to watch it finish.
sure, yeah. I think the conference that's the most interesting to me here, and we touched on them a little bit, is the Mountain West.
100%.
Because, Utah State's a great basketball program.
Yeah.
New Mexico's a great basketball program. I'm very high on New Mexico. I think that they can do a lot of good things. The Aztecs have made runs all the way to the Final Four in years past.
Oh, yeah.
And they always play good basketball. And they're at 3 almost locks, but a team like Boise State, they're very capable of winning that conference tournament.
100%. They've been so up and down since January.
So up and down.
And so they're really another team who's really good at home, but when they go on the road, man, it's a dogfight. And if they're not in a dogfight, they're getting their doors blown off.
Right, but if they do win that conference tournament, now you got to start looking at some of these teams that are going to get bubbled out.
Yeah, I see the committee doing this potentially, where they look at these almost 3 locks and they just reverse and put one of the other teams on the bubble, whether it's Utah State or San Diego State. I think at this point, New Mexico should just move to a lock. I think that they're a good enough basketball team and they have a good pedigree.
Yeah.
And they've won enough games to be like, hey, we deserve to be in this thing. And
Yeah, I don't disagree with that either.
It's that if Colorado State ends up winning the Mountain West, now we have an absolute dumpster fire on our hands.
Do any of the teams that are less than 1% make any moves for you?
I think George
SMU,
Mason.
Northwestern, Villanova, George Mason, or Dayton. I know
Mason
we've
could win
talked
the Big
about
Ten.
George Mason.
Or the A-10. I keep doing that.
0 for 2, bud. Figure it out.
Dude, the fact that I have to go back to work tomorrow, I'm not thrilled.
I love my job. I'm thrilled to go back to work tomorrow.
I also love
I'm
my
not
job,
really
but
thrilled about this goddamn sunburn I got yesterday.
I teach sports, so I'm all good, boys.
yeah, it must be nice.
But yeah, no, like these
Play
teams that are less
pickleball.
than 1%, I think SMU could be a team that can make a run in the ACC tournament and turn enough heads to make people think about them.
Not at all.
How come?
I'll be curious to see what
Do
the
you
committee
know who
does.
my favorite team is?
Well, you kind of send a lot of mixed messages wearing a national champions Michigan shirt, talking about
Yeah, but
the
come on.
Wolverines, talking about Duke.
It's
I know
Duke.
you like
There's
Duke a
no
lot.
way that SMU is beating Duke.
We call
The
this
only-
guy front runner.
Whatever, dude. There's no way that SMU. There's no way that SMU is beating a team like Duke, Clemson, Louisville.
It's March, man.
I think they could.
How?
They've played competitive basketball
That's cute.
all season long. Yeah, it is cute.
Cooper Flag,
It works well. Yeah, Cooper Flag. But if
22
they-
points a game.
Depending on where they get in the bracket, if they don't have to play Duke until semifinals, championship, that might be enough for the committee to say, yeah, you can get in here, especially if everything else goes true to form.
The only way that SMU is beating any of those 3 teams is if they just decide not to play their starting 5.
Yeah, UMBC had a 2% chance to beat Virginia, and it turned into 100%.
Yeah, but Virginia's always been a little weird.
Yeah.
Notice that they're not on this list at all. There's a lot
We haven't talked about them at all.
Well, their coach also said, "I hate NIL and I'm leaving."
There's a lot of big teams that I'm starting to think that just aren't there anymore. You know, like that's the craziest part about the top 25. You're seeing a lot of teams that used to be in it consistently just not in it as much anymore, and Kansas has now joined the list. So, but let's not get too off track here. I like SMU making a little bit of a run. I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but I could see them winning some basketball games in the conference tournament, and if everything goes true to form, they might have a shot at a bubble spot.
I'll find it interesting to see what happens if Drake doesn't win the conference tournament. Like, what are they going to do with Drake?
Well, I mean, you could leave Drake out because they're in the Missouri Valley Conference, correct?
Yes.
Missouri Valley Conference has Drake and Bradley.
Yep.
And Bradley has beaten Drake. They might have split this year.
They did.
But I did watch the Bradley-Drake game because I had Drake money line, and sure enough,
If you listen to me, it's probably not going to work out for you.
I'm just putting that out there as far as gambling picks goes. But Bradley has a decent little squad.
They beat Vanderbilt.
And, you know, Bradley, if they win that tournament, I don't know how you can justify keeping Drake in the field of 68.
You got to remember, they were in the NCAA tournament last year as a 10 seed. And unfortunately, they ran into the Washington State team that had like 8 dudes that were all 7'8", and could play defense and shoot threes. And so it was a 5-point game. But I mean, this year they beat Miami, they beat Florida Atlantic, they beat Vandy, they beat Kansas State.
Vandy's not a bad team to beat.
No,
They've got some good wins under their belt.
they do.
Saying Miami's a good win is a little bit of a stretch.
That's why I didn't say it.
They beat one of the power schools.
Yeah, and that's what
That has
the
to
committee
mean
takes
something,
into
right?
consideration most of the time is how have you fared against better competition, the strength of schedule. Like the committee's going to have some tough decisions if things don't go true to form, as they always do.
Yeah.
And they're going to mess it up somehow, and they can mess it up by putting North Carolina in there or Kansas in there if that's how it ends up shaking out.
I mean, I think Kansas is probably squarely in, which is annoying. But again, it comes down to the name brands. If you put some of these name brands in the tournament, you're going to get viewership. Viewership equals money. And we like money.
Everybody loves a little bit of money.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which is why we haven't put out any gambling picks, because I certainly haven't been winning any money lately.
And then, if we look at the SEC, we talked about Oklahoma and Texas already on the bubble out, Arkansas being bubble in, and Georgia is kind of in that category of should be in for the SEC. And I just want to bring this up. He's also talking about West Virginia and Baylor as teams that should be in. Do you see any of these bubble teams, if they win their conference tournament, so let's say Indiana goes on a run and wins the Big Ten, it's an automatic bid. Who's that should be in that's out? And we're looking at West Virginia, Baylor, Georgia, and Drake.
You know who's not on this list?
Who?
Oregon.
Oregon's on the lock.
Oregon's a lock.
Dumbass.
They're in.
Oh. Sorry.
They've 9 quad 1 wins. They're getting in the tournament.
I was looking at the Big 12.
You don't have to whisper.
Quit.
Say it with your chest.
Quit
Admit
trying
you made a mistake.
to hide.
I mean, Dunham's called the Atlantic 10 the Big 10 like 4 times already.
It was an honest mistake.
All right, we'll allow
Whatever.
it. But, yeah, I think Indiana or Nebraska, if one of those bubble team gets in, I think Drake's that first team out, especially if they don't win. And
Which
then I think you got to
sucks.
start looking at Georgia too. I don't know if Georgia has enough of a resume, but it's an SEC team, so we gotta let them in, right?
Got to.
Yeah, whatever gets the
Best.
viewers happy.
Best teams. Best conference ever.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing this year's been it's so top heavy this year. Those bid stealers just they're not as prevalent as they have been in years past.
Yep.
which I wouldn't say makes conference tournament time less exciting, but I want to see some of these teams at the bottom of their conference go on a run and just show up, right? Like, I think the ASUN tournament starts today. I'd love to see the Jacksonville Dolphins make a run. They're the 4 seed in the ASUN tournament, but I love watching the Jacksonville Dolphins play basketball.
And if you are also in agreement that you like to watch the Jacksonville Dolphins play basketball, please like and subscribe, because this is the podcast for you.
Absolutely, right? Like I think we're all mid-major happy. Like except for Bird, he would rather watch the Dukes of the world, which is so boring. That's not where college basketball lives. College basketball lives in the mid-majors, and then when you want to watch the big boys play, you watch the tournament, and they'll lose, and that's okay.
Yeah, and the mid-major schools are fun. I like teams that come out of the Mountain West or the A10, but the teams from the ASUN, you gotta be kidding me with that. Like,
what do you mean?
there's just
They're
not
getting
like
killed by teams like Yale.
Hold up. Hold up. One of the greatest upsets of all time in the NCAA tournament came out of the ASUN conference.
You make a solid point.
You guys ever heard of Dunk City?
Florida Gulf Coast,
Florida
baby.
Gulf Coast came out of the ASUN tournament. Okay? These mid-majors, you got to learn about them. If you want your bracket to be good, you need to know mid-major basketball, because that's where your upsets happen. They don't happen on the lines in the Sweet 16. They don't happen in the Elite 8. They happen on opening weekend. Okay? Chances are Cinderella generally doesn't make it past opening weekend. But you got to know the mid-majors to get your upsets correct.
Yeah.
And that starts with watching Jacksonville Dolphins basketball.
Yeah, and then if you look at some of these other mid-majors, I'm looking at the odds right now on DraftKings. Shout out DraftKings. I make a kind donation to you every month. But Lipscomb,
Yep.
however you want to say it, minus 165. And if you're looking at Jacksonville, they're at plus 1,700. If you're feeling that value, plus 1,700, go put it on Jacksonville. Take like a little half unit and go run with the Dolphins. Or swim with the Dolphins, I should say.
I actually wouldn't put it on Jacksonville. I put it on North Alabama.
You're just talking from like a strategic money winning standpoint, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay. But if you look at some of these other mid-major odds right now, the one I always like to look at is the Ivy League. It always seems like whoever comes out of the Ivy League, whether it's Yale or Princeton or Harvard, they always seem to have a very good opening round game.
Yeah.
Or just get absolutely blown out of the water.
Last few years, they've had really good games coming out.
Take Yale.
It's Yale.
Yeah, Yale is the favorite if I could scroll fast enough.
Yeah.
But those Ivy League schools always do a pretty good job of making some noise in the tournament. Other mid-majors, I guess we could consider the West Coast Conference a mid-major.
Yep.
Right? So you have Gonzaga. I've always been impartial to the Gales for whatever reason. I like watching San Francisco play basketball.
Yeah.
They've gotten a lot better the last 3 years.
They shoot a lot of threes.
Yeah.
And they make the overs very fun to take. Missouri Valley Conference again. You got Drake, Bradley, and Northern Iowa. And Northern Iowa made some noise in the tournament a few years ago. Can't forget about them.
I think they were down 6 and kept Texas from inbounding the ball, and they made 4 or 5 buckets in a span of 10 seconds. It was awesome.
Summit League, you have North Dakota State, Omaha, South Dakota State as well. All of those are very solid teams too.
Put your money on Omaha.
Yeah, Omaha has had a very, very good year.
13-3 in their conference too.
Yeah, they're nasty.
The Summit League is always fun basketball to watch. Bunch of just farm boys in North Dakota or whoever they can get to come and convince them, like, yeah, Fargo, North Dakota is the place for you.
Yeah.
Come play basketball in Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, you from...
But we don't mean Creighton in Omaha. We mean Omaha in Omaha.
Yeah. UNO, baby. Pretty good hockey squad over there.
I was going to say, the issue with the Summit League this year is usually the Jackrabbits from San Diego or South Dakota State will usually end up on the 12-13 line. This year, the Summit is projected to be a 16 seed, no matter who wins.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Another thing that T3 bracketology was saying is that some of these teams that are even five 5 seeds in years past. Some of them are gonna have to go all the way down to Illinois. Big upset today over Michigan. Probably only puts them at a 8 or 7 seed still.
Yeah.
They're
Which is
still
a
gonna have to grind their way through the tournament.
Great 8 to play there. What's the WAC look like? What's the WAC? I know that I think Utah Valley's currently the favorite in the WAC. They're the 1 seed.
GCU.
Man, don't sleep
Tarleton.
on Grand Canyon, man. They can.
I do
shoot
love. I
lights
do
out.
love me some Grand Canyon basketball. You know the other one I was looking at a little bit ago, Sun Belt. Got some turmoil in there.
Dude.
You got 4 teams.
Can we talk about the
fighting
Sun
for
Belt
the-
bracket real quick?
You got 4 teams fighting for first place, all at 13-5 in conference play.
And they all claimed co-conference champions. Have you seen the Sun Belt bracket?
Oh, we've seen it.
Dude, what are we doing?
Disgusting. Disgusting bracket layout.
I'm all for rewarding the conference champions and the top 4 teams and all that stuff with buys and all that extra stuff. But dude, imagine if your entire conference was 500 outside of the top 2 teams and you finished last on a 15th ranked tiebreaker. And now you got to play 8 games in like 6 days through the Sun Belt tournament, and then you get to Selection Sunday and you're like, hey, we get to go play Tennessee.
We get to go get our teeth kicked in by Duke.
Sweet.
That's so much fun. So, I mean, if you haven't seen the Sun Belt bracket, it's a true gauntlet. So the West Coast Conference did this a couple years ago because there was no point in having everybody play in a straight quarterfinal when Gonzaga and St. Mary's were going to meet in the final anyways. And so to make it more fun and to drag it out, they're doing the ladder version where the 8 plays the 9, then the winner of that game plays the 5, and then the winner of that game plays the 3, and then the winner of that game plays the 1, and then the winner of that game plays in the championship game. So the 1 and 2 seeds are already in the semifinals. Well, the Sun Belt's got like 16 teams in it, so they decided to double the amount of teams that are in the tournament, and so the 16 and the 15 will play, then they'll play the 13, and then it's just, what are we doing?
It's safe to say that's a shit show.
Yeah.
Shit show, but never know when one of those 16 seed teams is going to just upset a 4.
All it takes is one.
It is March, baby.
Yeah, I mean,
But it's not going to happen. In that
I feel like
if you're bad, you're bad. If you're good, you're good.
I keep
That's how
looking-
those mid-major teams go.
yeah, I keep looking at these bracketology picks, right? Like these projected brackets from ESPN and CBS. And I just find myself doing that thing I do every year and being like, how are any of these top 4 seeds going to lose?
Yeah, I mean, and yet they always find a way to do it. And,
Always.
You know, sometimes it's about your 3-point shooting. If you're off one day, like you're
Defense.
screwed. Your defense, if you're just getting penetrated through the paint,
Yeah,
sometimes that'll hurt you.
it'll happen.
Penetration does hurt from time to time. But
Pause.
anyways, like these mid-major teams, as fun of a story as they are, we know one of them's going to beat a 5 or 6 or a 7. We know that's going to happen,
Yeah.
at least somewhere along the way. We know that the teams that are the 13, the 14 seeds, they're also going to find a way to make some noise or give somebody a run for their money.
Yeah.
You know, it's really fun to watch. I just, like you said, it's hard to pick those teams, but if you have an idea of how they play during the conference tournament, you know, it's like anything else. You get hot at the right time,
Yeah.
you can take down a team that may be struggling in their conference tournament.
Yeah. So
For
let's,
instance, like if Michigan doesn't win a game in the Big Ten tournament, and they drop all the way to a 6 seed,
instantly.
you
defeat
better
against
start
them.
looking at Bradley to go in there and upset Michigan
Instantly.
anywhere. You know, it's like it's crazy how just when you get hot at the right time, you're hot at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, let's take a look. So the CBS current bracket that came out this morning after yesterday's chaos. In the South, 1 seed is Auburn, 2 is Michigan State, your 3 is St. John's, and your 4 is Texas Tech, right? So Auburn gets a play-in game against the whoever's in that 16 spot. The 2, Michigan State, currently is getting a Robert Morris. St. John's would be getting Towson, and Texas Tech gets High Point. I look at that High Point team, and I'm like, that could be a team that does it. They shoot the ball really well. They play okay defense, but man, Texas Tech, good. Really
Good team. Another Big 12 team that we didn't mention.
Yeah.
earlier in this episode, we didn't really talk much about Texas Tech.
Good basketball team.
Great squad.
Right now in the West, Tennessee would play Omaha as the 1-16 matchup. Wisconsin's the 2, Texas A&M's the 3, and Iowa State's the 4. Here's where it gets intriguing.
Yale.
The current matchup, or the current projection, is Iowa State gets to play Yale. Here comes that Iowa State Cyclone voodoo. The struggle is real.
Just got to keep a hand up on Monkolovich or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Hit 6 threes last night.
I mean,
Gross.
I think Yale is just honestly a smarter team than Iowa State.
Fuck, I would hope so.
I feel a little hatred coming from your side.
Look, man, Iowa, Wisconsin, no thanks. I hate both states.
Fucking Minnesotans, bud.
Hey, now, you can't get too much on my case about Minnesota. Shout out to everybody who congratulated me on this podcast compared to congratulating me on getting married last weekend when I was over there. Thought that was pretty funny.
Big bird.
Yeah, that feels like true Minnesota love there.
It was some true Minnesotan love. But anyways, Iowa State, like, everybody talks about them all year long. Whether it's football or basketball, they're all over Iowa State. And they're like, oh, this could be the time they do it.
It's not.
It never is.
Never.
You know how many times I picked Iowa State to go to the Elite Eight and they've messed me up?
Dumb.
Way too many times.
Multiple.
Way too many times. And I won't fall for that again. Give me Yale with a first round upset if that's really the case.
Yeah. I mean, I think in my entire life, I think Iowa State's been to the Elite Eight once.
Perhaps.
That's all I can think of. In the Midwest, Houston is currently on the 1 line. Florida's on the 2. Michigan's on the 3. Missouri's on the 4. Chumps. Houston will get the winner of the America East Conference, whether that's Bryant or Vermont. TBD there.
Big Vermont boys down here.
Yeah, Vermont's getting hot at the right time. We'll see if they can get Bryant, because they're going to have to play him at home unless Bryant drops 2 more in the regular season. Florida would get Central Connecticut State out of the MAC. Not the MAC. The MAC.
Say it one more time.
MAC.
How does that sound?
MAC.
Sounds like you're kind of having a little bit of a stroke there.
But I might be. Michigan's the 3 line getting the Northern Colorado Bears out of the Big Sky.
Yeah, but after today, Michigan's falling down.
Potentially.
They're going to fall down. And if we're looking at trends, Dana Altman's team could definitely move into that 3 seed territory. It's very, very possible.
Oregon is currently on the 5 line in this region. They get UC San Diego,
and I would not want to play them.
No.
If I was Oregon.
No.
Give me Bryant.
Yeah, I'm not excited.
How would you feel if it was an Oregon-Vermont matchup in round 1?
Oh, I'm picking Oregon. I love my people at Vermont, but I'm picking Oregon.
Well, I mean, you pick Oregon, but who are you rooting for? Oregon still?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my blood, sweat, and tears is in that building.
Fair enough.
Just my sweat is in the Vermont building. I love my Vermont people, but I think even when we went to the tournament in 2018 against Florida State, I picked Florida State. It was a good game, though. All right. In the East, Duke's on the 1 line, but I don't think they're coming off that.
No.
Bama's in the 2, so good luck. This region's great. On the 3 is Purdue, and the 4 is currently Marquette, which is wild. If you want to keep believing in Shaka Smart in March, go right ahead. That's your fault.
It is your fault if you do believe that. He's been prone. Yeah, maybe he should go coach Iowa State. Maybe 2 negatives make a positive.
He should go to Indiana. They'd make the tournament and be a top 4 seed every year, and they'd be disappointed every year.
Sounds just like Hoosier basketball the last 10 years.
He took VCU to the Final Four and then ditched and hasn't been back since. Way to go, pal. Current lineups, Alabama would get South Alabama as the 15. Purdue gets Chattanooga as the 14. Marquette gets Akron as the 13. There's nothing here that screams upset.
Oklahoma over Kansas.
I mean, yeah.
We've touched on
Georgia over Maryland.
No.
No, Maryland's got a pretty good basketball team. they had some pretty high expectations going into the year. Kind of went into a lull at the start of conference play. But Maryland's starting to turn it right up in the Big Ten.
They've had some really, really close games that have ended in last shots.
Yeah.
Last shots, getting the buzzer beater at the end. So I agree with you. I'm just trying to stir some shit up.
I mean, if you want to look at the first 4 11s in, because usually 2 of these teams win, right? They win that first round opening matchup. You have Xavier and Baylor. I just combined the 2.
I like
and then,
Baylor in that matchup.
That's a really fun game, I think.
Yeah, I like what's his name, BJ Edgecombe for
Yeah.
Baylor. Absolute dog.
And
Carries the
I
team.
like Baylor's coach.
Yeah.
Seems like just a very, very good guy.
Yeah.
And you know what? Sometimes it's okay to be a good guy and have people root for you.
And
You
that,
know,
Tell me
that
you're
winner-
Minnesotan without telling me you're Minnesota.
That winner would drop Memphis in the Midwest. And then the other game, Arkansas and Boise State on the 11 line. Gross. I don't know what to think. And then they would play Arizona. So
Give me Arkansas beating Boise State by at least 20 points.
then do they go on and beat Arizona? Like, which one of these 11 teams is going to beat Memphis or Arizona?
I think a lot of them. I think most of them could. I think any of those 11 seeds can be dangerous. I think the benefit of playing that extra game helps too.
Well, certainly. But it's like I've said all year, I can't bet on bad basketball teams. I can't do it.
Yeah, but I don't think
As we
Baylor's
said on
I don't think
mid-majors.
Baylor's a bad basketball team.
I don't think they are either. They just hit the schneid.
Yeah. All right. I think it's about time we move into our favorite segment.
Chump bucket.
Who do we have to put in the chump bucket today?
We've been edging you all day, boys. Missouri.
Missouri Tigers.
Mizzou is
Dude.
poo.
Facts.
Would agree, dude. Like we said it earlier. How do you make your way up? You know, middle of the season through that
Beat
SEC
Alabama.
ranks. Okay, and yeah, beat Alabama.
And then
You're
go
riding it,
to
riding
Vandy.
coattails. You're playing really well, and then you just fuck it up. You can't beat temes like Arkansas.
Just not mature
Mississippi
enough
State.
yet.
Vandy.
They just
Vanderbilt.
aren't mature enough yet. Like you go. Oh,
Not a good time to start being immature.
Yeah.
You
not-
go 0 in
not
SEC
ideal.
last year though, and now you're winning. Like I mean, anything's an improvement over that if you win a game in the SEC.
10-6 in SEC play. 10-6.
And that means a lot to the committee, obviously, if they're going to put him on the 3 line.
Yeah.
Like that's
Whatever,
insane.
dude.
Well, I mean, I don't understand them on the 3 line, but I understand why all the teams above them are 1s and 2s.
Well, they beat
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
I agree.
Yeah, but Oklahoma is to be
They
on
lost
the
to
bubble
Texas.
to be in not even close to.
They
to
beat
this
Florida.
So you know what, Missouri? It was
Yeah.
fun to root for you for a few weeks. We were all pulling for you. You go 0 in SEC last year, and decide to just edge us. So we edged you, and you're going right in that damn chump bucket this week.
Would agree.
Yeah.
Not living up to the standard.
I can't wait to pick against them next week.
Oh, it's gonna be glorious.
Yep.
Glorious
So,
to see him fall apart.
I know we have the ASUN starting.
Yep.
A few other tournaments starting tomorrow. Okay. And then which other tournaments are starting this week?
I believe the rest of them start after
Saturday?
Wednesday. No, I think they start after Wednesday. I think the SEC has 2 more regular season games, and then they're into tournament play.
Okay. So everybody watching, keep a lookout on our social media stuff of us keeping up with all the tournaments so we can push them out to you guys. We got them all created, ready to go. Excited to follow along with all these tournaments.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch conference tournaments.
Yeah, and you know what? It might be fun to do in a couple weeks when we get there. A little live Selection Sunday reaction.
Oh, yeah.
with the boys. I think that'd be a good time to get us streaming and talk about what we're thinking about
Yeah, we'll
as
get
soon as
to-
those names come out.
Yeah.
You'll
Love
get
for
to
you
watch me
guys.
see a
Love for you guys to tune into that.
Oregon matchup that I don't love and just sit there and sulk for 20 minutes and then be like, all right, here we go.
And then probably find a way to lose in the Sweet 16.
Great.
Again.
Can't wait.
Thanks for tuning in today, everybody. I want to shout out a couple of other podcasts that we follow and listen to. Stewards of Stoke. If you're into anything outdoorsy,
Love you guys.
bike riding, all of those things. Matt and Braven definitely know what they're talking about. They're heading out to Sedona, and they're going to come up with some killer content in the next few weeks. And then Borderline Sports, if you're interested in Minnesota sports at all, I got to give a shout out to my fellow Minnesotans who are trying to be another white guy with a podcast as well. So,
Hell yeah.
Love those guys up there. Love all the support you guys are giving us. Don't forget, follow us on all social media at National Chumps Podcast, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Starting to come up on TikTok.
Soon to be TikTok.
There we go. Okay, like, follow, subscribe. Tell us your thoughts. Tell us the teams you love. Tell us the teams you hate. Maybe we'll throw them in the chump bucket. Okay, got some really big things coming. After March Madness coming, we've got a few guests lined up. Really excited for those guys to hop on the podcast. Tell us about their college experiences and what they're dealing with in NIL. So, got some big things coming. Really excited to continue this with the boys.
yes, sir.
Yeah,
We'll
I
see
love
you
you
guys
guys.
next week.
Chumps out.
Chumps out.